A platoon of Tiger tanks rumbled across the shattered fields of Kursk. Dust rose in thick clouds as their engines growled, shaking the ground beneath their weight. Minefields, anti-tank ditches, and trenches stretched for miles, but the Tigers pushed forward. Suddenly, Katyusha rockets screamed overhead, showering the earth in fire. From behind a shattered tree line, a dozen Soviet T-34s burst forward, charging into battle. The Tigers' 80 EPM guns roared, tearing through the Soviet tanks with terrifying precision. But through the haze, more shapes appeared, 10, 20, perhaps more, signaling that the fight for Kursk had only just begun. After the defeat at Stalingrad, the German army pulled back, abandoning large sections of territory. Soviet forces pressed forward, seizing vital transport routes and threatening to cut through German defenses. But their fast push left their positions overextended, giving Field Marshal Erich von Manstein a chance to launch a counterstrike. In early 1943, his counteroffensive retook Kharkov and stabilized the front just before the muddy season set in. The maneuver created a massive bulge, or salient, around the city of Kursk, 200 kilometers wide and jutting 120 kilometers into German lines. It was here that Hitler saw a chance to deliver a decisive blow and regain the initiative. The plan was named Operation Citadel. Within the German High Command, there was sharp disagreement. Manstein and Klug urged a swift attack before the Soviets could reinforce their defenses. General Model doubted the Wehrmacht had the strength for such an operation, while Heinz Guderian opposed any offensive, warning that Germany could not sustain another major campaign. But Hitler delayed the operation, insisting on waiting for the arrival of new weapons: the Panther medium tank, Ferdinand tank destroyer, and Tiger I heavy tank. These machines, he believed, would crush the Red Army in a single, decisive strike. The delays, however, gave the Soviets time to prepare. Thanks to Soviet intelligence and information provided by British sources, Marshal Georgy Zhukov knew exactly where and when the Germans planned to strike. He ordered the construction of one of the most formidable defensive systems in military history. Multiple fortified belts, hundreds of miles of trenches, anti-tank ditches, minefields, barbed wire, and camouflaged bunkers turned the Kursk salient into a fortress. Over 1 million Soviet troops gathered for the offensive, supported by about 3,500 tanks, 20,000 artillery pieces, and thousands of anti-tank weapons. On the night of July 4th, Soviet artillery opened fire, bombarding German positions to signal their readiness. Hours later, German guns answered, and the Battle of Kursk began. In the north, General Walter Model's 9th Army advanced with 300,000 men and over 1,000 armored vehicles, but progress was painfully slow. Soviet defenses were brutal. Minefields exploded under treads, barbed wire funneled troops into kill zones, and artillery rained destruction. At the village of Poniri, savage house-to-house combat erupted. The fighting was so intense that soldiers called it Little Stalingrad. Despite enormous effort, the northern attack stalled. In the south, General Hermann Hoth's 4th Panzer Army fared better. Supported by Paul Hauser's elite NQSU, SS Panzer Corps, Leibstandarte, Das Reich, and Totenkopf divisions, they smashed through several defensive belts. But even here, the cost was staggering. Panthers broke down in large numbers, infantry struggled to keep pace, and Soviet counterattacks, though costly, slowed the German advance. By July the 12th, the struggle centered near the town of Prokhorovka, where the largest tank battle of the war was about to erupt. At dawn, around 600 Soviet tanks charged downhill into 250 German tanks, hoping to close the distance and neutralize the Tigers' superior firepower. The battlefield became a storm of fire, smoke, and twisted metal. Soviet armor swarmed forward, some ramming German tanks in desperation. Yet the Tigers and Panthers, with better optics and guns, tore through their ranks. In less than 2 hours, some Soviet brigades lost more than half their strength. Nearly 400 Soviet tanks were destroyed compared to about 60 German losses. Though Soviet propaganda declared Prokhorovka a victory, it was a tactical defeat. But by then, Operation Citadel had lost momentum. In the north, Soviet forces launched Operation Kutuzov, striking Model's exhausted army. In the south, Operation Polkovodets-Rumyantsev pushed through weakened German lines, capturing Belgorod and Kharkov by late August. The Germans had lost thousands of men and hundreds of tanks, resources they could never replace. The Battle of Kursk marked the last major German offensive on the Eastern Front. It was the moment when the Red Army seized the initiative and never gave it back. From that summer onward, the Soviets pushed westward relentlessly, driving the Wehrmacht toward Berlin and the war's inevitable conclusion.